Have you ever looked around your life and realized that everything you depended on had disappeared? No money in your pocket, no one waiting for you at home, no hand reaching out when you fall. Just silence. Most people believe that hope belongs to those who already have something to lose, but sometimes hope belongs only to those who have already lost everything. Tonight, our story begins with a young man standing alone beneath a cold bridge in a city that doesn't even know his name. He owns nothing, not a house, not a job, not even tomorrow, yet hidden deep inside his exhausted heart is one tiny spark that refuses to die. That spark will change his entire life. His name is Elias, and this is the story of how hope became his greatest treasure. Long before loneliness became his closest companion, Elias lived in a small village surrounded by endless fields of golden wheat. Every morning began with the smell of fresh bread drifting through the tiny wooden house his family called home. His mother smiled even while working. His father carved beautiful furniture with patient hands. They were never wealthy, but every meal was shared, every laugh was genuine. Every sunset felt like a promise that tomorrow would be just as peaceful. As a little boy, Elias believed the world was kind. He believed hard work would always be rewarded. He believed families stayed together forever. Those innocent beliefs became the strongest memories he would carry into the darkest years of his life. One quiet afternoon, Elias watched his father carefully shape a piece of oak into a beautiful chair. Without looking up, his father suddenly spoke. "Remember this, son. A man's true wealth isn't measured by what he owns. It is measured by what he refuses to lose." Elias frowned, though he was too young to understand. To him, wealth meant food on the table, a warm bed, a happy family. His father simply smiled and placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "One day, life will test you. And when it does, protect your heart more carefully than your possessions." Years later, those simple words would become the only thing keeping Elias alive. Winter arrived earlier than anyone expected. The wind howled through the village, carrying tiny sparks across the rooftops. Late that night, a single ember landed inside the workshop. Tea first, no one noticed. Then smoke curled toward the ceiling. Within minutes, flames burst through the wooden walls. Neighbors rushed with buckets of water, people shouted, children cried. Elias stood frozen as the workshop where his father had spent 20 years building dreams disappeared before his eyes. The fire did more than destroy wood. It destroyed certainty. For the first time, Elias saw fear in his father's face. That image would remain with him forever. When morning finally arrived, the fire was gone, only ashes remained. The workshop had become a field of blackened wood and broken memories. His father walked silently through the ruins. He picked up a single burn hammer, held it tightly, then quietly placed it back down. He didn't cry. He didn't complain. He simply stared into the ashes as though searching for the life he had lost. Standing beside him, Elias understood something without anyone saying it aloud. Sometimes, life doesn't ask whether you're ready. It simply changes everything, and from that morning on, nothing in their family would ever be the same again. The weeks after the fire were painfully quiet. The family survived on whatever work Elias's father could find. Some days he repaired broken fences. Other days he carried heavy stones for builders who barely looked at his face. He worked until his hands bled, yet every evening he returned home with less hope than the day before. Then one rainy afternoon, he never came back. A wagon had slipped on the muddy road. By the time the villagers found him, it was already too late. The news spread through the village like a cold wind. Elias stood frozen at the doorway, unable to move. His mother collapsed into tears. For a long moment, the world became completely silent, and no child is ever ready to lose a father. And no father ever wants to leave his child behind. That night, Elias looked out the window as rain tapped softly against the glass. He realized something that would stay with him forever. Life doesn't always take things away one by one. Sometimes, it takes everything at once. The funeral was simple. No grand speeches. No expensive flowers. Only people who truly cared. As everyone slowly walked away, the village priest approached Elias with a small wooden box. "It belonged to your father," he said quietly. Inside rested an old silver pocket watch. Its surface was scratched from years of hard work. Beneath it lay a folded piece of paper. Elias carefully unfolded it. Only 6 words were written in fading ink. "Never abandon hope before tomorrow arrives." He read the sentence again and again. That moment, it felt almost too simple. How could hope feed a hungry family? How could hope heal a broken heart? He slipped the note into his pocket without realizing that one day, those 6 words would become the foundation of his entire life. As winter slowly faded, another hardship arrived. His mother became seriously ill. The village doctor examined her quietly before lowering his eyes. Without medicine, she would not recover, but medicine cost more than the family could ever afford. That night, Elias made the hardest decision of his young life. Before sunrise, he packed everything he owned: 3 shirts, a loaf of bread, his father's pocket watch, the folded note, nothing more. His mother held his face gently. I know you're afraid. So am I. But wherever life takes you, don't lose the kindness your father gave you. Elias hugged her tightly. He promised he would return. Then he began walking toward the city, without looking back, because sometimes, moving forward is the only way to keep hope alive. The city was larger than Elias had ever imagined. Stone buildings stretched toward the sky, factories filled the air with smoke. Thousands of people hurried through crowded streets, yet among all those faces, no one noticed the young man carrying nothing but a small bag and an impossible dream. Every morning he searched for work. Every afternoon he heard the same answer. No. We are full. Try somewhere else. Days became weeks. His savings disappeared. Then his bread was gone. Still, he refused to stop asking, because every rejection reminded him that giving up would guarantee failure. As long as he kept walking, there was still a chance, even if that chance was invisible. When the last coin finally disappeared from his pocket, Elias had nowhere left to go. That evening, he found shelter beneath an old stone bridge. The ground was cold. The wind carried the sound of distant laughter from warm homes nearby. He wrapped his thin coat tightly around himself and looked at the stars hidden behind heavy clouds. For the first time in his life, he questioned everything. Was his father wrong? Could hope really change anything? He took out the old pocket watch. IT had stopped ticking. He unfolded the worn note once more. Never abandon hope before tomorrow arrives. He whispered the words into the darkness, not because he fully believed them, but because they were the only thing he still possessed, and sometimes, the smallest light is enough to guide someone through the longest night. The days grew colder. Elias woke each morning with an empty stomach and a body that felt weaker than the day before. Hunger was unlike anything he had ever imagined. First, it whispered. Then it demanded. Soon, it became the only thing he could think about. As he walked through the crowded streets, every smell became a temptation: fresh bread, hot soup, roasted meat. He watched people laugh around tables filled with food while he struggled to remember what it felt like to be full. That afternoon, he stopped in front of a small bakery. Behind the window, golden loaves of bread were stacked neatly on wooden shelves. The warm light spilling onto the street felt like another world. For a long moment, Elias simply stood there watching, dreaming, wondering how something so ordinary could suddenly feel impossible to reach. Just then, an elderly customer accidentally dropped a loaf of bread onto the sidewalk. The old man continued walking, unaware. The street was busy. No one noticed. Elias slowly stepped forward. The bread was right in front of him. His hands trembled. His stomach screamed, "Point one step," and his hunger would disappear, if only for a day. He bent down. His fingers touched the warm loaf. Then, his father's voice echoed in his memory. A man is not measured by what he owns, but by what he refuses to lose. Elias closed his eyes. He stood up, ran after the old man, and gently returned the bread. The old man looked at him with surprise, then smiled. "Thank you, my son." Those 4 simple words filled Elias's heart more than the bread ever could. The old man did not continue walking. Instead, he turned back and looked carefully at Elias. His clothes were worn, his face was exhausted, but his eyes still carried honesty. "Are you hungry?" the old man asked. Elias wanted to say no. Pride almost stopped him, but this time, he chose the truth. Yes. Without another word, the old man invited him into the bakery. A bowl of hot soup, fresh bread, a cup of warm tea. Simple things, yet to Elias, they felt like a feast. When he finished eating, he whispered, "I have nothing to repay you." The old man smiled gently. "You already have. You reminded me that honesty still exists. Sometimes, One act of kindness is enough to begin changing 2 lives instead of 1. Before Elias left, the old baker stopped him. "I've been watching people for many years," he said. "Most would have taken the bread. But you didn't." Then he asked a question Elias would never forget. "Would you like to work here?" For a second, Elias couldn't speak. He thought he had misunderstood. The old baker smiled once more. "I cannot pay much, but I can offer honest work." Tears quietly filled Elias's eyes. For weeks he had searched for a chance, not charity, not pity, only an opportunity. That morning, hope finally answered, not with miracles, but with a single open door, and sometimes, that is all a life needs to begin again. The work was difficult. Elias woke before sunrise every morning. He swept the floors, carried heavy sacks of flour, cleaned ovens, served customers with a quiet smile. His hands became rough again. His body remained tired, but something had changed. Every evening, when he looked at the old pocket watch, he no longer saw the symbol of everything he had lost. He saw the promise his father had left behind. Hope had never been magic. It never erased pain. It never guaranteed success. Hope simply gave him the courage to take one more step, and then another, until one day he realized he was no longer surviving, he was living, and every new sunrise whispered the same message. Tomorrow always belongs to those who refuse to stop believing. Months passed. The bakery became more than a workplace. It became a place where Elias slowly rebuilt the parts of himself that life had broken. He worked before sunrise and stayed until the last loaf was sold. Every coin he earned was carefully saved. Most of it was sent back to his mother. For the first time in many months, he believed life was finally turning around. But hope is not proven when life is easy. It is proven when life becomes difficult again. One bitter winter morning, fewer customers came, snow covered the streets, flour became expensive. The bakery began losing money. One evening, the old baker looked at Elias with tired eyes. "I don't know how much longer we can keep the doors open." The words struck Elias like another fire. He had finally found a place to belong. Was he about to lose it all again? For a brief moment, fear returned, but this time, it did not stay, because Elias had learned something he never knew before. Hope is not the belief that nothing bad will happen. Hope is choosing to move forward, even when bad things do happen. That night, Elias stayed long after everyone had gone home. He looked around the quiet bakery, the wooden tables, the empty shelves, the warm oven that had once filled the room with life. Then he remembered the day he had walked through this very door with nothing. No money, no future, only hope. The next morning, he made a decision. Instead of waiting for someone else to save the bakery, he would help save it himself. He woke before dawn and baked fresh bread with the old baker. He greeted every customer with kindness. He carried warm bread to elderly neighbors who could no longer walk through the snow. Soon, people began talking, not about the bread, but about the young man whose kindness warmed the town more than the ovens ever could. And slowly, customers returned, not because the bakery had changed, because the people inside had. One quiet afternoon, a letter arrived. The handwriting was familiar. It was from his mother. With trembling hands, Elias unfolded the paper. "My dear son, the medicine helped. I am getting stronger every day. The neighbors often speak about how proud your father would have been. He once told me that hope isn't something we find, it's something we choose. Thank you for choosing it." Tears rolled gently down Elias's face. For so long, he believed he had left home to save his mother. Now he realized she had been saving him all along. Sometimes, the people we think we are protecting are quietly giving us the strength to keep going. That evening, Elias climbed a small hill overlooking the city. The sun slowly disappeared behind the rooftops. He held the old pocket watch one last time. It still no longer worked. Its hands had stopped years ago, but suddenly, he smiled. The watch had never been meant to measure time. It measured something far more important. The journey. His father's words finally became clear. A man is not measured by what he owns, but by what he refuses to lose. Elias had lost his home, his wealth, his comfort, even his father, but he never lost his kindness. He never lost his courage, and above all, he never allowed hope to die. That was the greatest victory of all. Years later, people no longer remembered Elias as the poor young man who slept beneath a bridge. They remembered the baker who never let anyone leave hungry. The man who greeted strangers like old friends. The man who believed every person deserved another chance. Many ask him the secret of his success. He always smiled before answering. I never became successful because I had hope. I became successful because I refused to abandon it. Life will disappoint you. It will test your patience. It will take away people you love. It may even leave you with nothing. But as long as hope still lives inside your heart, your story is not over. Because hope is not the light at the end of the tunnel. Hope is the courage to take the next step, while you are still surrounded by darkness. So if today you feel lost, if you think life has forgotten you, remember Elias, remember the old pocket watch, remember those 6 simple words. Never abandon hope before tomorrow arrives, because living must be accompanied by hope, and sometimes, hope changes everything.